Hey there, Trekkers. It's Chris Pitcher here for Trek Tonight. Yes, I am back from the COVID experience. It's like a thrill ride at Disney World. But let's just get right started because we have most of our panel is here, and we can't wait to introduce you to all of them in just a second. So let's get going. Hey, and we are back, and here to help me talk through this so I don't cough in your ear too much is my good buddy and friend, not fan, maybe a fan, I don't know, Leo Genestek. How are you, Leo?
I'm a fan of you, yes, and a friend. It's great to be here. Glad to see you're on the mend.
Yes, well, I will definitely be.
Rigelian fever can be very
Yes, I will definitely be hitting the mute mic, I'm sure, a few times over the course of the evening. And of course, as usual, one of our regulars, Joe Townsend. Joe, how are you?
Doing wonderful, guys. And, I'll go on record, Chris, saying that I am a friend and a fan.
Oh, there you go. There you go. And now the big thrill, the big surprise, one of our most prolific fans that is always in the comments, very rarely misses a show. Here he is, Keith Jacobson. Keith,
hey,
how are you?
How you doing? I am great. So I'm looking forward to this. This should be a good time. Although if me being on the show is a big thrill, you guys need to get out more.
No, you're not wrong.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. Any rate, the reason we're here again tonight is to talk a little bit about the season as a whole. Obviously 2 weeks ago we saw our last episode, which we had a program on, and I just wanted to get everybody together and get a general consensus of what people thought of season 1 of Strange New Worlds. Leo, why don't you jump in? Usually I hop over to one of our guests, but just give us a general nutshell, thumbs up, thumbs down rating for the whole thing.
I'm going to give it 2 thumbs up. Because 1 was not enough. I loved this first season. I thought it was terrific. I felt it had all the elements of the original series that I loved, but through a modern lens. Everything, there was a level of depth and sophistication, which is not a knock on the old show. The old show was a network TV show made in the late 1960s.
Right.
Very progressive for its time. Maybe not so much, as I've said, by today's standards, but it was still a weekly TV show that was being made, being churned out in sort of a studio fashion. They would write scripts in advance, but they weren't building a world in the way that we think of world building today as fans.
Right.
But they took all those elements, so many little Easter eggs peppered out through the whole series that just delighted me. I'm going to say right off the top of my head, in the 5th episode, Spock Amok, where Pike was wearing the green wraparound tunic, or like a new version of that.
Right.
That was perfect. They just,
yeah.
There was I can't say enough good things about it. The only down part is there are only 10, and we're gonna have to wait another year to get more.
Right.
But as I was saying a little before, we were having a little confab before the show, is I'd rather have 10 really strong episodes than 10 strong episodes, like 7 like okay episodes and 3 dogs,
right?
Which we would often have in previous seasons because of the nature of television of that time. So
yes, yeah. Joe, what do you think? What's your general consensus?
My general consensus, just like Leo, building upon what he said, 2 thumbs up if I'm allowed to.
Mhm.
The homages and the Easter eggs are great fun. However, I did appreciate that, unlike Picard, which we all enjoy, but there was
Yeah.
and of course, what are Townsville tidbits based on other than those Easter eggs, right? But I think there was a lot less of a reliance on that. I think there was just a better approach to telling stories. And as far as additional episodes, I can't help but wonder, we could probably do 15, couldn't we? I mean,
I think so.
Discovery did 15, and then they went to 13.
Right.
They'll probably go to 10 now, but they'll be in line with the others. And and that has varying degrees of success. But I think I would probably take a couple of dogs if I could get 3 more good ones.
Sure.
So.
Fair enough.
Well, I mean, yeah, in my opinion, the characters and the the whole tone of the program is so much fun that I think even on a sort of a medium strength, you would still enjoy it.
Well, I think we have a couple of those, which I'll talk about later when we get to that. But I also, and I do like Leo's point of saying, this is just bringing an episodic TOS feel into the current times, which really the Next Generation did back in '87.
Yeah,
and we enjoyed it for that, even though the episodes were really horrible for the most part
Right.
for quite a while.
Yeah.
But we were back in that mode, and that, I think it's, as speaking for myself as an old school Trekker that's been there since the beginning, I did enjoy the approach.
Right.
Episodic, but continuing characterizations and subplots.
What do you think, Keith? Overall,
Well, overall, I don't think it's going to come as a shock to anybody here, but I loved this show. God, did I love this show. Jesus. I mean, I have not seen, and we can talk about this later or not. I don't know, whatever. But
Yes.
I loved. I think Star Trek works better as episodic TV, and I think it. And this is coming from someone who likes long format stories in TV.
Mhm.
Battlestar
Sure.
Galactica is one of my favorite TV shows of all time, and at least in the science fiction genre. And Picard, Discovery, they have all. I mean, I found things to like about all of them, but I think Star Trek works best in an episodic format with the continuing character development, like Joe was talking about. And I think the problem is that there is such an optimistic feel to the Federation,
Mhm.
and if you're going to, but if you're going to have a story, there has to be some problem. There has to be some kind of darkness in there somewhere.
Right.
And if you are telling a long form 10-hour or 15-hour story, then you've got to have, 7 of those hours be a problem.
Right.
And so you get 7 hours of darkness and it stops feeling like Star Trek. Whereas in an episodic show, you get 20, 30 minutes of darkness, and then you get the hopeful Federation. And so you go through that arc in an hour,
Sure.
and you don't have to live with, oh my God, they're so depressing for 7 hours.
Right. And actually, that's a really unique way of looking at it. I hadn't looked at it that way, but you're right. You do get your drama,
Mhm.
but it gets doled out in smaller doses, and it doesn't. I mean, I never knew you were a huge. I don't know how I didn't know this, but that you were a huge Battlestar Galactica fan. I was too. Okay. But that was a damn dark show.
Oh God.
And there were some episodes. There actually, as much as I love that show, there are some episodes I really can't sit and rewatch because they're just so dark that I go, do I really want to live that again? But great show. Really loved it. Loved the reboot. All right, Leo, you primarily came up with the questions. Do you want to sort of lead the question asking?
I will. The first one, and I'll throw it to Joe first.
Okay.
Is what element seemed the most Star Trek for you in this season?
which as you can see, guys, I did my homework. It's all right there. Questions and answers. It's been touched on already, but I'll expand on it if I can. What elements seem to be the most Star Trek? More optimism, not so relentlessly dark. Right. An episode can even end ambiguously. It doesn't have to be a happy, ending with a bow on it, but it isn't something that just drags you down and never releases you until the last 2 of the season, which our serialized stuff has done so far.
Right.
That was a little bit hard to sit through at Deep Space Nine on occasion. When they got to like the 6 and 10 episode arcs about the Dominion War, it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So I think that we, having that, along those lines, humor, diversity in subgenres, story types. At times, maybe I felt a little bit jarring from episode to episode. Okay, this one's really terrifying. This one's like happy humor, But again, like TOS, they would often do the same type of thing. I think it just feels a little bit more jarring to me because it is so brief a season.
And I was gonna that would have been my follow-up to your statement, is that maybe that would not have felt that way in a 15 episode season.
That's what I'm thinking. And but overall,
there was pause to think. These ion storms are always in merry hell with the comms.
Yeah.
Keith, when Joe gets back, he'll finish his thought. What seemed the most Star Trek to you?
I mean, it's already been touched on, but if we're going to go with a single moment, it would be in the very first episode, and this kind of like set the pattern for the whole show. I think it was Pike's reach for the stars speech to the aliens there. That brought me. Oh. And I didn't just tear up at that. I started freaking bawling going into the show. I had such high hopes for the show, and during that first episode, I was going, "This is good. Okay, this is good. Please don't blow it. Please don't blow it. This is good." And then Pike delivers that speech. That speech could have been said by Kirk. It could have been said by Picard.
Right.
It was one of the classic Star Trek speeches ever. I mean, it ranks right up there. It ranks right up there. I will not kill today.
Yeah.
It just ranks right up there, and it had me bawling. It had me bawling, and then I just get control of myself. When what does Anson Mount do? But he starts delivering the boldly go speech again. And there I'm going, the waterworks are coming again. And then Uhura goes, cool. I mean, it doesn't get more Star Trek than that, I thought.
Craig Lubin says the lack of circuit breakers, exploding consoles are very Star Trek.
Okay, I'm wrong. That's more Star Trek.
Craig, you are technically right about the circuit breaker thing, but it is less dramatic if things don't explode.
Yes, no question about it.
So, Chris, throw sparks down from the ceiling.
What would you say is the element?
Well, I mean, I think that, and I'm trying to remember now because I'm a little foggy. Who said this here? I think it might have been Joe, but it was the. No, maybe this is my own independent thought. Okay, that's good. The characters all had a relationship, and whether it was a good relationship or a bad relationship, but the thing that took me back most to TOS was the camaraderie and the relationship between the characters, because you didn't feel that much, especially in the beginning of Next Gen. They were all sort of separate. But when you stepped into TOS and when you stepped into Strange New Worlds, you got a sense of how these people have all worked together for a while, with the exception of, like Hammer maybe coming on board and Uhura was new. But all the others, they had a relationship developed.
Well, one thing I was saying when my Wi-Fi took a dump was I remember telling you guys my my thoughts on before we even started on one of the early shows, the preview ones, where to me there was no throwaway characters in this.
Right.
I mean, I still struggle to remember the names of everybody on the Discovery Bridge.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
You know,
I agree. That is one of the things that, in a way, I'll say this. This is more of a it's less of a TOS element and actually more of a TNG element. Is that there would be an episode that might concentrate on different pairings of characters, which is something we got in TNG. We didn't get as much in TOS because there was initially 2 leads. It was Kirk and Spock, and then I think by the 3rd season finally got into the credits. Although he was there almost every episode, but there was always. But I like the idea that we got to see Hemmer and her. They developed a relationship.
Yeah.
And the idea that Ortegas and Chapel are friends and go on shore leave together and like talk about stuff that's going on in their lives, and these little elements that sort of tie to what you're saying, Chris, about they seem like a group of people who know each other and have worked together.
Right.
So, and or her sort of being the new kid on the block.
right.
She got like pranked to be like shows up in her dress uniform, and Enterprise Bingo that came back. But it also felt like I felt like in that second episode, we got to know more about Uhura in that episode than we've learned in the entirety of her character going back.
Without a doubt.
Quite true. Yeah, quite true.
Which is a thing that the old show, they might drop a tidbit or so about let's call them lower decks characters, like not the primary, as they say on another podcast, the best friends group, which, Kirk, Spock, McCoy. But for the most part, you didn't really know that much about them unless it was germane to the plot. But in this, everybody got a sense of who they were and their history came in. And that is not, it's a new school Star Trek element that I think they wove in to an old school style Star Trek show. And I like that. Plus, everything you guys said, the optimism, which was a nice change of pace. Discovery came out, during the height of the Trump presidency, which was for many people a dark period.
Right.
And the show, I always feel like Star Trek reflects the time in which it was made. So I think it tracks that in a time where people are feeling uncertain, that maybe the show would also wrestle with those sorts of uncertainties as well.
Right. Well, and our poor dear friend Joe Biden just got diagnosed with COVID, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, I'm in Wilmington, Delaware. My house is maybe a quarter mile down the road from Joe's. So, Joe, if you're watching and you want to ride out your COVID, come on over and we'll hang out together. And we got a chair for you right here. You could be on the show, and we could do the whole, lockdown thing together. So just be really good.
I would take you on, Chris, if I was Mr. Biden. So
yeah. What was the next question we had? Did we get everybody?
I think we got everybody.
All right. Feel a little bit like somebody's grandpa tonight. It's like everybody say something there.
Favorite character?
Who wants a turkey leg?
Me. I
think.
I don't think there's any secret about this one.
Yeah, please, surprise us all with the answer we know is coming. For those
Hammer.
I
just, so I fell in love with Hammer as a character during the trailers prior to the show.
Mm-hmm.
Where he says, my purpose is to fix what's broken.
Right.
And that is almost the moment that I went, holy shit, that is such a Star Trek thing to say. Is this show Star Trek?
Yeah.
I mean, this show feels like it might be Star Trek. And that's when I really started going all in. Plus, at least some of you here know, one of the nerdy things I do is I play role-playing games, and currently my favorite role-playing game is Star Trek Adventures.
Right.
And one of the concepts in that game is characters are defined by things like values, which are brief little statements that describe something your character believes strongly in. And holy crap, that's like a Star Trek. That's a value right there.
Right.
And I fell in love with Hammer, and then as the season progressed, we got to see this slightly curmudgeonly, except little secret there, he's not that much of a curmudgeon actually.
Right.
But he likes to pretend he's a curmudgeon, but he's really not.
Yeah.
So I thought Hammer was great.
Hammer was awesome. I will agree with you there.
And may I say it? I'm sorry. I don't know what the grand master plan is. They claim this was planned from the beginning, but what a waste.
I agree.
Well,
I agree.
Well, what we saw was wonderful, and I definitely see Keith's point of view there. But it's like
spoilers in case you. Although I'm not sure why you'd watch a wrap-up show for a season of TV.
yeah.
Hammer does not make it to the last episode. Although I have read that it's not the last we'll see of. I'm not sure
of the actor
or the actor. So
yeah,
he'll play other stuff, but I don't know. I mean, why introduce what I also find to be a very compelling character, and then have him absent for what was it, like 3 in a row?
Yeah.
And that's the part that gets me. Yeah,
that's my only complaint with this show is not enough Hammer.
Like if he had been, I agree with you there, Joe. If we knew he was only going to get one season, and it was important that he was there to pretty much solely to develop the character of Uhura and help her make her life choices. If that's what you're going with, the idea that that's what Hammer's all about, that's fine. But then have him in every episode, even if it's just a tiny bit. Yeah, the idea that he dropped out for 3 or 4 in the middle is kind of weird.
It wasn't quite 4, but he there was a little gap. There were a few episodes like, where is Hammer?
Yeah, at least 2.
They were all asking.
But so Joe, your favorite character?
Well, I'm going to go for the obvious answer, but it's a sincere one. I have to say Pike.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you why. Because the others are, especially the new ones, and in a very real sense, Uhura still is new for purposes of this show. Yeah. But as is Chapel, but Pike came into the series already defined from season 2 Discovery, and of course, Cage.
Right.
And that's another hearkening back, I think, to TOS is that it is more ensemble now, which it should be, but he is the mover of the series events when all is said and done.
Yeah.
I mean, he can take a back seat in a certain episode that isn't about him, but he's the man, so to speak. So I gotta say, yeah, I mean, like I said, he's the most nuanced, he's the most complex so far. Maybe I'll have a different answer next season to this question. But as it stands right now, I have to say Pike is
he is the captain you want to serve under because, I mean, it's much like I love Kirk, but Kirk lost a lot of people in the 3 years of that 5-year mission. I can only assume.
Well, plus Pike's always cooking and making ribs and stuff. So hey,
right.
So, at the captain's table, that's a good place to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
He is definitely a very welcoming and warm character, and substantially different from the original Pike as portrayed by Jeffrey Hunter, who is this burnt-out sort of guy who was like questioning whether I should continue. They both questioned whether they should continue with their careers at the beginning of this.
But for very different reasons.
Very different reasons. But yeah, he's funny and he's charming, and his first impulse is always like, let's talk it out, which is a very Star Trek idea. So, he is. It's a joy to watch.
Yeah, but then on the flip side of that, you see an episode with him where there might be danger, and you get a nice close up of him, unlocking the holster on his phaser. So, he's also a man of action, which is cool.
Exactly.
So yeah. It's so funny though because to hear Joe say, sorry guys, to hear Joe say Pike, I hadn't even considered selecting Pike. Because to me, he's just, obviously, he's like the core of the whole thing. So then you have to then step down from him and say, well, all right, who else was my favorite? And I've got to say, I love Ortega.
Oh yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
really thrilled to hear that there's going to be a lot more for her to do in season 2. They've been hinting at that, and I'm really thrilled about that. I mean, I love the actress. I just love her personality. I've seen her. Hang on. I've seen her in a lot of interviews, but I just love the character, and I love the relationship that she has with Pike. So if you're going to,
Oh yeah.
she almost has a tighter relationship with Pike than Una does, which I found surprising, because the way it was originally depicted in the pilot, you know, I know he says he can't get used to a woman being on the bridge, but but you do get the impression they have a relationship.
Well, she almost fills the McCoy role as far as her interactions with Pike.
Yeah,
and it's more immediate because she's right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do love their banter. They have this great banter in kind of a shorthand. You can tell they've served together for a while,
right?
And it's great. I have two answers. One is the first one is I'm going to say Spock, because I think that Ethan Peck is doing an outstanding job of portraying a younger Spock who is not as sure of his place in the
I would agree.
There's a lot of wonderful, subtle acting going on, and it's a challenge because, I mean, unlike there's only one example of the original Pike. So, and I mean, but there've been others. There's the Abrams movies. Not exactly not exactly the same character, but sort of. This current Pike is a little more like the movie Pike than the Cage Pike. But we've had Spock, Nimoy, who is the gold standard, and then we had I'm blanking on his name, the guy from the Abrams films.
Bruce Greenwood.
No, Bruce Greenwood played Pike. I'm thinking the guy.
I'm sorry, that's what you were going for.
Chris Pine.
No, Chris Pine was Kirk.
What character are you talking about?
Spock.
Ethan.
The guy was on Heroes.
Zachary Quinto.
Quinto, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Who I also thought did a really good Spock. He looks a little more like Nimoy than Ethan Peck does.
Right.
But they can't exactly I don't want to have them cast somebody who looks just like the actor if they're not right for the part.
Great.
But he brings so much subtlety and humor. Zachary Quinto. Thank you, Greg Lubin. But on the other hand, I'm going to say every character is kind of my favorite. I love Chapel. I love the new Chapel.
Me too.
Funny and clever and sassy and flirty and very much her own woman.
Mm-hmm.
Benga is terrific because he's kind of the sort of the heart of the ship. Like he has the strongest moral compass.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it. Yeah.
I liked his relationship with Pike, and I would like to see a little more with that. Like when he first goes down to visit him in sick bay, and he goes, "Do you have any words of wisdom?" He says, "Don't order the house salad." They laugh and they embrace. And I loved all these characters. I want to see, like Una. I feel like we get her story is obviously going to play a part in the next season, but I would like to know more about her.
Right.
All of them are my favorite characters. They're all so good. There's nobody there where you're like, yeah, all right, well, I guess. They all work together so well, and there's such like you said before, this camaraderie, which is amazing because a couple of them, like 3 of those actors worked together earlier in Discovery, but the rest of them are all new.
Right.
So
although I have to say, there's one exception for me, and that's La'an. Took a little bit of time for me to warm up to her.
And I think that was a deliberate choice. I think her character is very deliberately not a warm character and sort of off-putting.
Right.
But
for me, it wasn't. I mean, when I say warm up to her, I mean, she felt a little two-dimensional in the first couple episodes. She didn't
very Yar-like.
Yeah, she didn't start to flush out and become more three-dimensional until you got into it a little bit more, which is fine, But if there was any character that needed to develop, from the get go. That was the one for me that I felt, yeah, that's the weak link. But she ended up bringing it, so
Yeah.
you know,
And again, a few more episodes we might have seen some of those blanks being filled in.
Yeah.
exactly.
So, all right. Now, going back to my list of questions. Best episode and worst, in your opinion. So, Chris, let's go with you to start with this.
I was being brought a new larger drink. What did you? I'm asking. What was the
Yes.
question?
Best episode and worst, in your opinion, if there is a worst.
Best episode and worst. All right. Well, for me, it's hard for me to say worst because there really wasn't one that I sat there and went, okay.
Yeah.
Whereas, like and we've referred to this a few times, and I don't mean to really crap on it, but there were high points and definitely low points in Picard season 2. You know, and I didn't feel that with this.
But there's no Spock's brain in this first season of SNW.
No. Brain. What is brain? I don't know why you caught me off guard a little bit with that question.
All right.
I
why don't you say what your favorite episode was? Let's start.
Well, my favorite, I think, would most probably be because there's so many that are good.
We could come back to you if you're.
Yeah, come back to me.
Okay,
I'll go.
Oh, go ahead.
That's okay.
Yeah, if you got it locked and loaded, please.
I got it locked and loaded right here. As I told you in our pre-show discussion, I basically came up with now I'm going to say, along Chris's point, I don't like the terms best and worst because worst implies bad.
I agree.
For bad. But I'm going to say my favorite and least favorite. How's that?
Okay.
And as far as my favorite, I did come with a favorite and a runner-up. Same thing for my least favorite.
Okay.
And I went back and forth. As a matter of fact, my notes are going to contradict what I'm going to tell you now as far as my favorite.
Okay.
I have to say that Memento Mori just edges out Quality of Mercy for me. I think Memento Mori was probably the best. There was a lot to like in Quality of Mercy. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a little bit too relied more on some fan service, which I loved, as we said. But I think Memento Mori just was just an all-out classic in the making. That's one you can go back to over and over again and appreciate that. As far as my least favorite, you might have a surprise. You might be surprised with this one. Elysian Kingdom. Okay, fun, forgettable, but it's fine. And I got to tell you, as far as the one that it kind of surprised even me, as far as a second, a first runner up to least favorite for me is, which again, I enjoyed, All Those Who Wander. Let's face it, guys, that was a ripoff. I mean, we got Alien, we got Predator. Okay, fine. We like the Gorn. We love the Gorn. But it just was... I kind of put those two against each other, and I almost made that one the least, but I'll say that's my second least favorite of the season.
Okay. Keith?
I can't argue with this.
No, yeah.
So I think, and I've also had a hard time with this one too, because I like so many of these episodes. They're all great. Spock Amok is one of my favorites. I loved seeing their take on the body swap on the Freaky Friday trope. And I think the actor and actresses they did an amazing job with it. But I think I am going to go with my favorite being A Quality of Mercy. I enjoyed the fan service. And it's the one that caused me the most questions, just in terms of how would a new fan react to a fan who has not seen Balance of Terror. I was react to that show. And if Flobo Boyce is any indication, he saw A Quality of Mercy before seeing Balance of Terror.
That's true.
And he, and while Balance of Terror might have filled in some of the plot points that old nerds like me got, he enjoyed A Quality of Mercy better.
Right. Well, my wife did it the same way. For those who don't know, Flubba Boyce is the host of Commander's Log, as well as the co-host of Starbase 80. And I'm going to assume that you're referring to both of those programs when you talk about Flubba, because he would have watched Balance of Terror on John Weber's show, Starbase 80, and would have watched Strange New Worlds on Commander's Log. So,
well, if I may pat myself on the back, I was so happy because I appeared on both, which was great. Right. And when we were talking about Equality of Mercy on Commander's Log, it was obvious Flobo hadn't seen Balance of Terror.
Right.
Yeah, I asked him about that, and I convinced John. He had another episode scheduled for Starbase 80 the following Sunday entirely. I said, John, just do it after the fact,
Right.
And I think it was a great perspective for Flobo to be able to see some of those blanks filled in. But I do agree with Keith that the episode on its own holds up. It doesn't require knowledge of Balance of Terror.
No,
but it's definitely enhanced by it.
Well, and again, like I said, my wife Gina watched Strange New Worlds first, and then watched the original, and she loved the episode without any knowledge of Balance of Terror at all. She loved it, and then it was like a cool aha moment kind of thing to go back and then watch Balance of Terror and be like, oh yeah, I see where they got that. And, oh yeah, no. And that was kind of cool, but it was certainly not a prerequisite for enjoying the episode.
Sorry, kid, I think I stepped on your second half of your answer.
Well, yeah, and I think I'm with you because again, if we're talking least favorite, we're like, I want to stress, it's not that I didn't enjoy the show. It just is I pretty much liked other shows at least a little bit better than this one, and I'm going to agree with you, Joe, that it was All Those Who Wander. Yeah. Although there might very well be a specific reason why this one goes into my least favorite category. God damn it, they killed Hammer.
I wonder why.
Well, there's a good point. And just to clarify, that was my second. That was my first runner for least favorite.
Yeah.
So we're still got a diversity of opinions here. So that's great.
That's right. Yeah. But in all fairness, if they were going to take out Hammer, the way Hammer went out was noble. And if you gotta go, I love the way Hammer went out in that. Yeah. I just wish they had kept Hammer around for a while longer because he was. I wonder if that makeup was too damn expensive. Because he was under a lot of prosthetics.
But they claim it was planned from the beginning.
Yeah, that's what they say. Yeah.
They told him you're going to be in one season, so we'll see. But like I said, we may see that actor return. We'll see. The future is yet unwritten.
And Star Trek has a long history of bringing actors back to play additional characters in other shows and in other incarnations and so on. So
yeah, I will give this to All Those Who Wander. It just occurred to me, it definitely beats out Skin of Evil as far as a shocking death of a main character.
Yes. Oh God, yes. Well, oh my God.
So at least there was something there you could get behind it, while you're being shocked.
In all fairness, so that's a freaking low bar. I'm only 5'4", and even I could step over that.
Go around it, Captain. Anyway, yeah, that's Skin Evil. Hammer doesn't go out like a chump, so
no. And he doesn't fall off of scaffolding like Captain Kirk does eventually.
Yeah, that was.
Oh God.
That was just
the worst way for Kirk to go, I thought. Like oh my goodness.
Like somebody's grandpa, you just fell off.
Well, the sad part of it is he dies the first time.
Yeah.
Going into the Nexus in a really cool, noble way. It was really awesome.
He had a wonderfully heroic death.
Exactly.
And then he gets chump killed by the end. Anyway, but we're not here to discuss that. No. I would say for me,
why
not? I enjoy. Like everybody here. There's not one I think is bad. I really liked Spock and Muck because it was the first time they did a break where it was humorous, and it's a challenge to do a funny episode with Vulcans because Vulcans,
right?
They're snarky, but it's sort of like you don't want to rob them of their dignity. You don't want it to be silly, but there was a good opportunity for both the actor Ethan Peck and the actress who played T'Pol. Sorry, the praying. These
Those
praying.
tea women.
Look at this. Look at it this way. Hemmer was dead for a couple of seconds. Too
See?
soon. Too soon.
Who's-
Too soon, Lubin.
To bring, they got a lot of nice little subtle challenges for the actors to play, and it was an episode where you got to get a sense of the relationships. Like we got a little bit of number one with La'an, who are the two more serious. Although I always felt, and this is sort of, I hadn't brought this up before, but the nickname where fun goes to die feels like that's more of a La'an nickname than an Una nickname, because we don't really get to see Una be like a real hard ass.
Right.
He's you could bounce, a bar of gold pressed latinum off La'an's ass, metaphorically speaking.
That's a good point.
But I like to see the two serious people be like, well, we're fun too, and they got to have like, they did the Enterprise bingo.
Yeah, I liked the Enterprise bingo thing. I thought that was great.
And we got to see more of Chapel and sort of the beginning of her infatuation with Spock, and perhaps Spock's, I think he won't admit his maybe attraction to her, and just we get to see Dr. Mabenga fly fish, which was such a weird little throwaway moment, because they be like, oh, you're going to meet your friend, which I expected them to bring back, but it's just like a moment where he's like, I can just fly fish here and be happy, and nobody's bugging me, and it's kind of nice to see that, because it didn't eat up a lot of screen time. It was just like a little moment where you got to see him be happy. So that is, and also go back to, there's so many I liked. I loved the opening episode, which felt very Star Trek, with the idea, it was very much in the grand Star Trek tradition of looking of troubles that exist in the world and throwing, and making aliens act that way, and sort of reflecting our problems. A politically, troubled planet who we seem to be fighting over like probably inconsequential things, and realize, that maybe come to, he says, don't be, Pike's like, don't, like a lot of us on Earth, a lot of people died because we couldn't get our shit together. So don't be like us.
Right.
Then be like us now.
No, it did feel very Trek, I thought. I mean, that is definitely true.
And I will say, for my least favorite, and it's not, I'm going to say not least favorite, but it was the third episode with the light virus, and we got to see a lot of Una, but I felt like we didn't get to know, other than the fact that she's an alien. She's a genetically engineered alien. We don't really get to know much about her, like personally, and I'm hoping we'll get more of her backstory this coming season. Again, there's only so much you can do in about an hour, so I'm not too critical. Like, again, it was a perfectly enjoyable episode. You got to see her do some cool stuff, and you got to find out about her and Benga's, the things the secrets they're carrying with themselves, and we got to see compassion being the byword. Like where Pike is like, I'm not going to report you. I'll deal with this when it comes up, and she doesn't report Mbenga, which was nice, because it was the idea of like, if you are shown compassion, you're more likely to show compassion to somebody else, which is a very Star Trek idea, I think.
Well, and there's that family aspect, now that you put it that way, Leo, is that, like our TOS family, I mean, less so in the original series, more so in the movies, perhaps. Yeah. But yeah, do you necessarily rat out your family member?
No.
And I do have a suggestion for Leo. If I think you're the one to put the questions together.
Yes.
If you want to have Keith and I and others back next year for the season 2 recap.
Yes.
Let's do an all season ranking. Let's see how easy that is.
Well, we'll see in about a year.
I think I'm going to need a root canal that day.
Well, after having had all that time to think about it, I have to say that I had I agree with pretty much what most everybody said tonight, but I have to give a little bit of a shout out for Elysium Kingdom, in the sense that it was very touching at the end. And that while it was you went into it thinking it was going to be one of these whimsical, almost Q-like fantasy episodes where everybody gets thrust into costumes and all of a sudden they're doing stuff, and then it would be very light. But in the end, it had a real wow, bang end to it that really you didn't see coming in a way. And so I can't say that that was not one of my favorites, because I thought the way it was crafted, it was a lot of fun. It was lighthearted. It was neat seeing the actors get to play opposite type.
Yeah.
But then you got this really impactful ending, which I don't think there was a person in this panel that didn't get choked up a little bit by that ending.
No,
so,
that was,
yeah.
I also like that they were able to resolve Mbenga's storyline, because
yes,
sometimes in TV they set something up and it gets forgotten, or it never gets resolved.
Or it gets dragged on forever and ever and ever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Hammer got some great moments using the magic of science.
Oh, it was that. I mean, it was a great Hammer episode.
Right.
If you have to say Hammer episodes, that was a really fun one.
It was so great to watch everybody play against type.
Mm-hmm.
They ruined Pike's like magnificent loaf and gave him that weird middle part.
Yeah.
I love seeing La'an as, the frou-frou princess with her purse dog wearing a bejeweled cape, and that is that actress's dog.
I love that that's really her dog. I think that's great. Yeah,
and everybody was terrific in their parts as these, sort of playing against type. And Uhura sort of stole every scene she was in her like evil queen.
Oh yeah,
getup, which is like, I'm sure, inspiring cosplayers as we speak.
Oh, I'm sure.
That is
would hope.
Now you're making me rethink my rankings.
yeah. Well, and then to throw in my I think my favorite episode would have to have been The Quality of Mercy. I think that was really my favorite episode out of the whole thing. I really enjoyed it. I love the throwback. I didn't see it as strict fan service. I saw it as here's a story about how this same situation would have been handled by a different commander.
Right.
And I thought that was a really cool
No, I agree. And they're
really cool concept.
Absolutely. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good end to the season.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always a big fan of alternate timeline episodes. That is because I'm always like, ooh, what's going on? Really?
Now I do have a if you don't mind the plug here, I do have a Townsville tidbit, which may be common knowledge by now. But did we all notice in the Elysium Kingdom that the book was written by Benny Russell?
No.
And remind me,
Benny Russell is
heard that
Far Beyond the Stars, Deep Space Nine, when they all played different characters in the 50s.
Right.
So now we have canonical confirmation that Benny Russell exists in the actual Star Trek universe as a person, not just as a character.
Oh, interesting.
Interesting. That is indeed a Townsville tidbit. And
well, I appreciate that. I want to get that in the show because I missed it the first time around. I just happened to catch it. Oh yeah.
You have some. You're very good at picking up those little details, Joe. And
well, thank you.
Okay, so let's see. What was missing from the season for you, if anything?
I think character development for Una. Because
I would agree.
Of all the characters, I don't want to say Una was my least favorite character, but she's the one I got the least opportunity to know.
I agree with you,
Keith.
Show.
Yeah.
And well, there's been discussion that she has no role beyond being XO. At least in the cage, she was like helmsman, apparently.
Okay. Right.
So that kind of contributes to the fact, like, okay.
Yeah, there has been some discussion about that, Joe. I've heard that too. And part of the problem is, what does an XO do? Well, an XO is basically an administrator.
Mm.
And so, whereas Spock was first officer, being first officer, he got to accompany the captain on away missions. He got to be in charge of the Enterprise when Kirk was away. He did a lot of more action-oriented things. But quite frankly, I mean, you would see, Riker bitching about it, because a lot of it's paperwork.
Yeah. I would like to see more from Una. I also want to see more about Ortegas. We have a strong sense of her character. I think
Right.
they definitely gave us that, but I would like to know more about her backstory, like where she came from, in a way that we got more of with the other characters. Um, but so I would like, in a way, the only thing missing is more. That
Yeah,
is,
right.
um, so it's not really missing. It's just not yet revealed.
Yeah.
So unless anybody else has anything that they felt.
Not really. I mean, yeah, I can't think of anything. I mean, I was gonna say, well, maybe it would have been fun to see a little bit more of Sam Kirk, but I don't think that's the point of his character.
No, but I
You know,
didn't mind Sam Kirk. I do feel in Elysian Fields, if the Jester shown up, it would have been Sam Kirk.
right,
Uh,
right.
and I don't know if they shot that, if it comes out on DVD, if they'll
I
have
bet it's a
it.
deleted scene.
Uh, but I liked having Sam Kirk on board. I think
Yeah,
when he showed up, bit of comic relief, not in foolish, but he had kind of a more lighthearted, like for a lighthearted moment, it was good to throw Sam Kirk in there.
Dan says he's a goober.
He's a bit of a goober, yes.
Yeah.
And this is something we sort of discussed earlier, Beto, is this is an episodic show, and how did you feel about that versus a long season arc? And it's
Sorry.
I think that because it is a 10 episode season, you don't always get to have the luxury of a 20 episode season where you're doing, let's say, the Dominion War arc, and then you can have a Ferengi episode or a Jake and Nog episode where they're doing something, maybe more in the earlier show, but you would have some sort of like a bit of a whimsical episode to break it up, as sort of a palate cleanser, as you will.
Yeah.
I one of my issues, well, I guess one of the weak points of doing like a big arc like they do in Discovery, and which is not to say I don't like Discovery, I do, but the thing is because they don't have the luxury of I want to say OO and Detmer, the only two bridge crew members that I can remember the names of. I would like to see an episode where they go, if they're just on shore leave or they're on a mission, they have to go ferry a diplomat somewhere in a shuttle and something goes wrong. I would like to get more of that ensemble. It is an ensemble, but the bridge crew, and I'm not knocking it, but I just want to see more of them. And it felt like the past season of Discovery, it was like every episode a bridge member would accompany the captain and then say, hey, here's something that traumatic that happened to me that is relevant to this episode. And it feels a real currency in the 32nd century is trauma.
Hey, listen, they had it on Lower Decks.
Yeah.
When Tendi and what's her name? Go
Mariner?
off to Mariner go off to bring the statue home.
Yeah, there. I like switching it up. I like being able to do that. So
Yeah.
But I think we've already really discussed this, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Going on, so there were quite a few references to elements from TOS this season. Did you find those satisfying?
Very.
Hell yes.
Very.
And of course, I do
there are
too.
a lot
I
of
just,
people out there.
yeah.
The biggest criticism of the show is, oh, they just took stuff from the old. Yeah, you know what? Damn good. I like this.
Yeah.
All right. I was glad to hear it. I'm a Star Trek fan from way back when, and I enjoyed the references. I'm not going to lie. I thought it was great.
And yet they still managed to tell stories that were new and fresh and fun.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Well, and those elements didn't. The stories weren't dependent on those elements.
No,
They were just there to enhance the atmosphere.
Right.
I think there was one. I'd have to look this up, but a possible tidbit, Townsville tidbit. But I heard somebody tell me that,
Oh
Oh no!
no! Damn it! Damn it!
Damn you! Con!
We
Oh,
may
yeah.
never know.
So, well, we'll get back when Joe comes back. The ion storms out by where he is are out of control.
Very bad.
They are.
I
Very bad.
liked all the little elements, like I said, seeing the wraparound tunic I love
Yeah.
that on Pike. Like little things like that they like for the fans, for the older fans, you're like, oh, that's cool. Like they're
Now we have 2 Joes.
Whoa.
2. God, one's bad enough, isn't it?
only one of
Oh,
you
that
is talking.
happens.
There we go. All
There.
right. You were saying you had a Townsville tidbit.
Well, possibly. I have to look because it's really hard to spot. I don't have a big screen TV currently, but I had read, so I can't take credit for it. But in Quality of Mercy, when future Admiral Pike looks at a photo, that it's a picture of him and somebody wearing the old uniforms, or basically there was no black collar, only the same colored turtleneck.
Oh,
color.
cool.
Oh.
So I'm gonna have to look that one up. But I thought
Yeah,
you
neat.
guys got too.
I did again. I love those little things, and I also loved the revamped, what is referred to as the Maroon Monster
The Monster
Yes.
Maroons. Yeah, they're cool.
costume.
I like the revamp too, Leo. I thought that was great.
because they also looked a lot more comfortable. I mean, I love those uniforms; they are so cool looking. But under, under camera lights, they have to be like as bad as wearing the Gorn suit in the desert.
Yeah.
So, but I liked it because it was like a little sleeker. It was a little less bulky, which is probably because Anson Mount's in very good shape. And by the time they did the next, they did Wrath of Khan, I think Nimoy and like Takei were probably like in the best shape. Shatner was always fighting the paunch, and as a fellow, fighter in that war.
Hey, Doohan was in pretty good shape for Wrath of Khan.
He was
getting there though. He was starting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was in really great shape for the motion picture.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So McCoy, DeForest Kelly has always been very trim. So,
Yeah.
It's, it.
Oh my God, he gets to be skin and bones. As the
Oh,
movies
yeah.
go on.
Well,
Yeah.
Skin and bones, John.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed all the little nods to the original series. Found the sound, like all the sound effects, like just like little subtle things.
Yeah, yeah.
And
and let's not forget the reintroduction of original music tracks.
Yeah.
For in Spock Amok,
Yeah.
and in
the
Quality of Mercy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's a lot of fun.
I mean, I love that. I thought that was fantastic. Completely unnecessary for them to have done that, and yet it really brought home the flavor of the old show.
Absolutely. It's coming home. I quite enjoyed that. So I have one more question on my list, which is, what are you looking forward to most in season 2?
Right. This is actually, this was my lame-o question that I threw in at the end.
Oh.
What about you, Keith? Why don't you give us your? What are you looking forward to?
That is tough. I guess I'm going to have to say more character development of Una, but really, I mean, I just want to meet these characters. I'm not ready. I'm not ready to leave these characters for a year. I want to.
Right.
I 10 weeks with these people was not enough.
No.
I like every single character on the show. I think the actors are amazing. Mount did a fantastic job as Pike. Peck did a fantastic job as Pike. Bush, but that was Chapel.
Yes.
She did a fantastic. I love her take on.
Me too.
There's not a single character in that show I don't want to. I want to see more. Just give me more of these people.
Right.
I want to see these people going into space and having adventures. That's what I want. Give me that.
Yeah.
I'm easy to please.
How about you, Joe?
Well, I mean, I know it's not going to happen, but I'll just say it one more time anyway. What I want more of? Episodes.
Yeah, right.
For that, with you guys, Keith, excellent points, because as I said, Pike is already the best developed. I want to see more of his development,
right?
But we do need to get more with the other characters. It is more ensemble than it was back in the old days, and that's a good thing. Personally, I'd like to see even more what I call high concept stories.
Mm.
I want to see something you point to that and say, okay, that was a classic. And I think the one we got so far is Memento Mori, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right.
I like to see like things like, Shore Leave and Bread and Circuses, not the alternate Earth BS. That's outdated, but something along those lines, just something that's kind of, weird and mind boggling. And we got a lot of that in the other shows too, later on. Una, I'll tell you one thing I don't want to see. And it's not because I don't like the character. I love him. I hope we're not bringing Scotty in. That would just be too much.
I hope not too. I mean, it's a
yeah.
Interesting. So you'd rather have them bring in a whole different chief engineer than bring in Scotty?
At this point, yes, because I'll tell you why, guys, because I'm just speculating here. I mean, there's been all kinds of discussion about the timeline and the sequence of events. We established in Quality of Mercy that we're basically looking at about 6 years or so before Kirk takes command.
Right.
Well, does that mean that this is only going to be a 5-year show? I said, well, no, because a season doesn't necessarily correspond to a year of time.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't want to see a big time jump, certainly.
Right.
I wanted to pick up where it left off, and I just want these things to unfold.
Although it has been pointed out by several people that of all of the characters with a backstory, that Scotty has the most vague backstory as to when he entered the whole universe. So
and he's been there since the beginning of TOS. I mean, he was there for where no man has gone before.
I mean, he could step into next season and nobody could really argue it.
But
because there really isn't anything written prior to that.
Yeah. I mean, I love Scotty. Don't get me. And there comes a point I want to see Scotty, but not in season 2.
Right.
I think they need another chief engineer. I don't even want Scotty on the ship as a lieutenant in the engineering department. I want them to have another engineer that they have a fear. Let me fall in love with that character as well. You know what? It might not be. There will never be another Hemmer in my heart. I admit that.
Right.
You know what? I can love other people, and so give me an engineer to replace Hemmer. And then, like in the last season, have him get promoted away or something, and bring in Scotty, or bring on Kirk, and Kirk picks hell. You know where the one place I might not object to if they bring Scotty back is if Scotty is engineer on Farragut.
On the Farragut, yeah, that would be.
And
cool.
when Kirk gets command of Enterprise, he brings Scotty with him.
Yeah, that would be cool. That's a neat way to look at it.
Because I think we don't want this to morph into TOS until the end.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so last night I was sitting down and my wife wanted to watch the Star Trek movies. She hadn't seen Star Trek movies, so we watched Wrath of Khan last night, classic. But I had to bring this up because we're talking about Scotty. We're sitting there and we get to the end and Spock has died and it's very sad and everything else. And then Scotty starts playing the bagpipes and Gina just kind of loses it. Like I just hear her chuckling over there. And then I'm like, what? And then she's like, is it like a prerequisite that every Scotsman has to know how to play the pipes? And I'm like, I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it is.
That Scotty, like when he wore just uniform, he would wear a kilt,
I know,
and the sash. He did he went full Scotsman, which is a very TV idea. Like I'm sure they're playing with Scotsman. They're like, I don't want to wear a fucking kilt. It's like, it's but it is curious. What are they think about? What I want to see more. Like again, part of it is just more. They're going to have an engineer. Right. I am sort of torn between Scotty and no Scotty because I love Scotty, and again, he's somebody we don't really know much about his background, other than I think he may have served with Kirk. There's a book out, The Autobiography of James T. Kirk, which was written not by Shatner because God bless him. Trek Wars aside, he's not really an author, and I'm pretty sure he didn't write Tech Wars either. I'm sure he wrote an outline and some ghostwriter did it. If I'm wrong, I'd be delighted to be wrong, but I think we all are fairly certain of that. But it's it's sort of tough because one of the criticisms of the show is they feel like there's certain characters that have plot armor, like Uhura, and Mbenga and Chapel, because we all know where they're going to end up. I mean, at least Mbenga. I mean, I guess we don't know where Mbenga is going to end up, but we know.
Not yet.
Well, he's on the ship. You just
he's on the ship. We don't know that he's, And is this timeline slightly different? It's okay if it is because
I agree.
It's a hard when you do a prequel. It is difficult because you want to tell new and interesting stories, but you also have to honor where it came from. Ironically, I think one of the best prequels ever made is what are you talking about? Shatner's ghostwriter did a great job on Tech War. Thank you.
I think that was the point.
Yes. Is this is not a Star Trek reference? I would say the movie Titanic. Now I've only seen it once. I saw it when it came out, or a little bit like I think second run, because I wasn't like it wasn't my jam. But I was like, oh, everybody's seen this. I went to see it, and really get involved with this story. These two young people who are falling in love. That's what the story is.
Right.
And then towards the end of the picture, we're like, oh fuck, they're on the Titanic.
Right. Yeah.
You've forgotten about the imminent death because you get wrapped up in their story.
Right.
And that, like I also got to see, because somebody gave me a free ticket to see the Titanic musical, and everybody at the beginning, they're singing this big thing. Like some people are like, I'm going to the new world, and everybody's really helpful. And I'm like, half of this cast is going to die.
Right.
It's like this big ensemble thing. But that being said, if they get...
That's all right, Leo. You didn't see it in Vegas where all the Edwardian women were topless.
I wish I had now.
Yes, absolutely.
That blew my friggin' mind. I got to, Titanic. Oh, yeah. We'll go see that while we're here in Vegas. All their boobs were hanging out. Just crazy.
Vegas.
Whose idea is that? Like, who sits there and goes, yeah, that's a great idea.
And you know what? Maybe thinking about it while we're talking, maybe having Scotty in maybe a little bit earlier than later might be a good thing, because with Uhura, we've definitely corrected some shortcomings of her character.
Right.
Up to and including her not knowing the Klingon language in Star Trek 6 as being the communications officer. With Scotty, maybe he wouldn't wear the kilt in a retconned timeline. And I have to think also that he certainly wouldn't kill his poor nephew by taking him to the bridge first after the attack in Wrath of Khan versus taking him straight to sickbay.
Yeah,
I think he was already dead.
Like 2 minutes earliher, I could have saved him.
Yeah,
so that's in the director's cut where they then have the scene where he's,
they have the deleted scene which explains it. But
Craig says for season 2, he would like to see less Easter eggs and callbacks and more character development and original stories.
That's a fair thing. I don't mind like a little Easter eggs, like wraparound tunic, like little bits like that sort of like, oh, if you're a fan, you can enjoy them.
I'd say atmosphere,
It's for atmosphere. Right. It's interesting because again, this has been amongst fans a debate that was like, well, the Gorn didn't show up to that episode and they didn't know about it. Why didn't they? I'm like,
yeah. Also,
you assume, like I've never served in the military, but even the sort of more transparent society of the 23rd century Federation, they don't tell everybody everything. It's not.
Right.
It's. I'm sure because there's been many examples are like, well, this is like, you don't have clearance to read this file, and you're a captain or something.
Yeah.
What's going on? So it's not like the Starfleet doesn't keep their secrets. And it's funny because people complain about the Gorn, like, we've seen it before, give us something new. And I've got one word for people who complain that like it's old, we've all seen it before. It's like Xindi. The Xindi are nobody's favorite aliens.
Right.
If you remember them from that Enterprise, and you might take you a moment to remember them because they're nobody's favorite. They're actually a fairly solid sci-fi premise, but nobody's like, yeah, we need to see more Xindi. Nobody's like, hey, why aren't the Xindi on this? No, nobody's here.
That's a good point. Well, and you can create obviously essentially new characters, new villains, what have you, by enhancing some older ones.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. I want to see more of these Gorn. You know.
Yeah, I do too. I don't think we've seen the last of the Gorn. I'm curious if we'll see the Klingons and whether they.
I was just going to say that.
The Discovery type Klingons, or whether they're going to lean more into the TOS era Klingons or the TNG era.
I mean, to be honest with you, I'd love to see the TOS Klingons, but that's just me, because it would be a nice.
It would be kind of a lock if it wasn't for the fact that Enterprise felt compelled to explain it away in canon. Where I always thought okay, they have better makeup now. That's the only impression I had.
That's the thing is
but now we have an explanation, so now you got to kind of
there was
build on that.
There's a book called The Final Reflection written by John M. Ford, who wrote two of the best Star Trek novels I've ever read. Final Reflection was a story written by a Klingon about the Klingon Empire, like about his role in it in the society. And the explanation was that the Klingons messed around genetically, and they created a group of Klingons that looked like that were sort of spliced with human DNA, so they would be better dealing with humans.
Right.
There were also ones that were spliced with Romulan DNA that would be better at dealing with Romulans. That was the conceit.
Right.
It's it's as good a science fiction explanation as any. The real answer is because they couldn't afford to do, like, Spock's ears took 6 hours to do back in the day, and they were very expensive.
Right.
So once head loaf technology became cheap and abundant, you could do all sorts of stuff in Star Trek. And TNG went overboard on the head loafs. That was how we knew it was alien, because they had some weird thing on their head, their forehead, so.
Was that West? What's his name? Westmore. Who was the guy? The big famous FX makeup guy from the '90s.
That Tom Savini?
No, I don't remember. Maybe someone in the audience will remember. Put it in the comments. Westmore, Westlake.
I remember Michael Westmore, but I have to admit I don't know what he did.
Yeah.
Anyway, but
I thought Westmore was involved very much with Star Trek in the '90s, but I could be wrong.
It's possible. I mean, the answer is one show was written in the 1960s and one was written in the 1990s.
Right.
I mean, that's the real explanation.
Yeah.
It's hard. You can't. Everything gets better. That's why this Enterprise looks more advanced than the original one. The original one was made out of plywood and lucite and stuff they picked up at a hardware store, switches and dials and so on. And that's okay.
Well, they made the original Enterprise look very nice in shows like Trials and Tribulations.
Yeah.
But that was 30 years ago. So you have to accept a certain amount of visual and effects retconning.
Yeah.
And
so I could have dealt with the sets, to be honest with you.
Yeah, my prediction for you though, Chris, is this. I mean, it's easy enough to explain away because I think they do have to. They've kind of written themselves in that box. They have to deal with it. I think we will see Klingons. For one thing, they're not going to make Michael Dorn a Discovery Klingon. We know that's not going to happen.
Right.
In Picard season 3, I think what we basically have here is just yet another Klingon species, which is used as cannon fodder, and they lost the war, so they've been shoved to the back of the Empire. Now we're going to bring out the more human dealing ones to deal with our characters now. That would make sense.
I mean, I just think it would be fun. But
it's also possible that this is another timeline where the Klingons were slightly different. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I know a lot of people hated the Klingons in Discovery. I'm like, they had enough bridges. I'm like, all right, those are Klingons, I guess. And I just moved on. Michael Westmore was the makeup guy in TNG DS9 Voyager. Thank you from Craig Lubin.
And on Chris Pitcher.
Yes.
No, I appreciate that, Craig. I was pretty sure I was right because, but it's been a while. So But
to me, the Discovery Klingons, I think I didn't have a problem with them per se. I do understand the need and the creativity to advance certain concepts, but for me, in that particular example, I believe that they should have just made that another species.
Yeah.
They might have. I wish. I mean, listen. If I was the executive producer, I'd be like, well, you know what Worf looks like, right? Okay, let's just do that.
Just do that. Yeah, exactly.
But it's you know, a lot of people blame the art department, but the art department only does what the executive producer tells them. He
Oh
says,
no, of course not.
we want Klingons, we want them to be a little different. Give me three different things. So they drop
Right.
3 different things. They'd be like, all right, I like this, but put that thing for the third one on this one, and the boots for the second one on that. And they're like, okay, because they are working for somebody. It's not like they're holding an iron, you know, grip on production. You know,
Yeah.
that's not how it works.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I'm looking forward to learning more about these characters. And the relationships. I want to see the resolution of what happens with Lalon going off to help that young girl reconnect with her family. I want to see what's going to happen with Una. You know, are they going to open with that? You know, and
Yeah.
that is also a very Star Trek idea of like we have to change the way we look at this. You know, we can't be afraid because of the eugenics war. You know, that was 200 years ago. You know, over 200 years ago, we have to move forward. So I'm looking forward to exploring the things that have been set up in season 1, I would say.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's like Seinfeld said in First Class. Remember,
Yeah.
more of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, guys, we are now 16 minutes over the hour. I did want to say on my thing for next year, I'm with Joe on this. I would like to see some more sort of high concept episode stories. I'd like to see more of Planet of the Week, if you will, you know,
Yes.
where you go down
There you go. Perfect
and
term.
you see something happen here and then they have to deal with it and da 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 da. I'd like to see a little bit more of that. But again, that would also require, I think, a longer season to have a few of those sprinkled in, but maybe not. Maybe not.
Well, I mean, and you know, the thing is, you can't.
But I agree with you there. That would be my one big takeaway. And of course, I want to hear and more. I want to see an Ortega episode.
Oh yeah.
You know, we got an episode for everybody, pretty much, but her. I'd like to get our Ortega episode. But,
Well, I think we will when we see the resolution of how we left her.
oh yeah,
For starters.
yeah. All right. Do we have anything else, gents? Because I am starting to fade, and
Yes.
we have run over. Anything else that leaps out at you that you must say about season 1 of Strange New Worlds?
I just want more.
Yeah,
One more great show. It was
popcorn strip
it was-
into my mouth.
yeah,
it was Star Trek, and I guess I will say, and I can do this very quickly. What I like about Star Trek, and which is what that first episode did for me, is you come in Star Trek. I think you come for the spaceships and the ray guns and the aliens, but at its best, what you get are a bunch of people. Excuse me, a diverse bunch of people exploring the universe. Not as some European colonizer. I've thought about this.
Yeah.
Not as some European colonizer, but to learn to make themselves better and maybe just maybe make us better.
right.
That's what I think Star Trek is at its best, and that's why I like Star Trek.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Well, I personally can't add it. I think he sums it up perfectly. And like I said, you know, we want to see more of everything. That we certainly want to see more of what he mentions for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well said.
Wonderful, relatable characters in a optimistic future that we can get behind and hope for. And at the meantime, just really thrilling us with their stories each week.
Right. Well, I think the next time that you well, I mean, we're Leo and I are going to throw together some fun ideas between now and what is it, the middle of August? Is that when Lower Decks
August
drops?
25th is when the first episode of season 3 of Lower Decks drops, which we will be
Right.
covering on a weekly basis. We're going to do some shows in between that where we're going to maybe take a look back. John Weber says, Keith Jacobson, more than just another old nerd.
Excellent point.
There you go. You're more than just that.
Yeah. So yeah, we're going to do that. But we will be here for the day that Lower Decks drops, and also we did an interesting interview. Really nice guy. I think I've mentioned this before. Vic Mignogna, who created Star Trek Continues.
Yes.
Leo and I sat down with him one afternoon and did an interview with him, and we're going to do a program in there where Leo and I go through and pick our 2 favorite episodes of that and talk about what we thought that project was all about, because I thought that was a great project.
It absolutely was. I've seen them all too, and Star Trek
Yeah.
continues, and it's an excellent continuation of.
We had a really nice, a little technical problem where all of a sudden the internet decided to die around me towards the end of the interview, so I kind of vanished. But
I had to continue to improvise. Chris had written more questions than I did, and I'd used my questions, so I had to sort of like, okay.
Yeah. All of a sudden, Leo had to
what's your favorite color, Vic?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But Vic kindly said he would come back for a second interview, so that was great. But we had a great chat with him as it was. So
there are a lot of things we're going to explore, different aspects of Star Trek. We got that fixed now. Woohoo!
We do. We have great internet now.
Excellent.
So that's really.
But yeah,
I wish I did.
Oh well,
blame it on the ion storms.
There you go.
The best one was when I forget what you were saying, Joe, but you had this really great point you were making, and then it was
suspense.
Yeah. And we also
made it through.
Oh no! At any rate, listen, folks. Thanks for joining us.
Yes.
Hopefully, I will continue to feel better. And next week, I will not be quite as droopy and dopey and goofy. I'm not sure what we're doing next week, Leo. I don't know. Did we?
It is TBD. We have a couple of ideas,
right?
That we're floating around, and we'll
post something on the Facebook page.
And we will be doing something next week.
Yes, we will be back next week
to discuss some other aspect of Star Trek.
Yes,
because there is a lot to discuss.
Well, I can say so, guys. I mean, I've been on Trek Tonight several times now. I sure appreciate that.
No, we love having you guys.
Great program. And you're just doing a fantastic job with the program and all the related elements to it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That means so much to me coming from you. Yes. And Keith, it was great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
I really appreciated it.
So much for cajoling me into this.
You are welcome. You are welcome. And so I guess I want to kick in the outro, guys. Thank you so much for being here, everybody.
Yes.
And I will see you all.
Before we do, remember to follow us on Facebook, Trek Tonight, on Twitter, also at Trek Tonight. And send us an email if you want. Send us a hailing frequency at it's trektonight2022 at gmail.com. Gina Petra says live long and prosper.
Yeah.
So get the hell off. So thank you everybody who watched, and we will see you next week. And thank you for joining us.
Yep, we love doing this show.
Yeah.
Up. There's
my God.
John Weber. I love this show. It's like hanging out with friends. Thank you, John, because you literally are my friends. Yeah, and that is very true.
That makes sense.
Hashtag humble bragging. Well said.
That is very true. That is very true. And believe me, we would not be here if it wasn't for John, because John's the one who introduced us to doing this kind of program. So,
and Keith, while we have a mutual admiration society, just want to say I thoroughly enjoyed meeting you and appearing on the show with this time. Hope we can do it again sometime.
Oh, yeah.
I would like that. Yeah. And I enjoyed meeting you as well.
Thank you.
That would be terrific. All right, gents. I'm going to kick us out of here.
Okay.
Listen, everybody. Have a great week. Thank you for watching us here at Trek Tonight.